They say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but for me, it came home like a wrecking ball. My name is Ryan, and I have been married to Laura for 9 years. We were a team, or so I thought. When Laura brought up the idea of going on a girls' trip to Vegas with her close friends, I didn't think twice about it. Laura had always been independent, and I trusted her completely. In fact, I encouraged her to go. Her job had been demanding lately, and life felt like an endless grind. She deserved a break. Deep down, I felt guilty for not planning something for the two of us, but I figured this would give her a chance to recharge. "Have fun," I said with a smile as I hugged her goodbye. She kissed me on the cheek and promised to text me every day. For the first 2 days, things seemed perfectly normal. Laura sent me cheerful updates, pictures of cocktails, selfies with her friends, and shots of the dazzling Vegas Strip. Her texts were short but sweet, and I didn't think anything of it. I was happy to see her enjoying herself. But on the third night, the messages stopped. At first, I thought nothing of it. Maybe they were having too much fun, or maybe her phone had died. Laura sometimes got caught up in the moment, and I didn't want to be that overbearing husband who couldn't handle her being out of touch for a few hours. But when I tried calling her around midnight, there was no answer. I waited an hour, tried again, still nothing. By 2 a.m., I was pacing the living room, phone in hand, anxiety creeping up my spine. 1,000 scenarios raced through my head, from something innocent like her falling asleep to darker possibilities I didn't want to entertain. The next morning, I woke up to a single text. "Sorry, Ryan. I fell asleep early. Love you. Can't wait to see you when I get back." Her words seemed rushed, almost robotic, and for some reason, they didn't sit right with me. I told myself I was overthinking, but a nagging feeling lingered in the back of my mind. When Laura returned a couple of days later, I hugged her at the door and helped her with her bags. She was glowing, more vibrant than I'd seen her in months. Over dinner, I asked her about the trip. "Oh, she said lightly. "We hit some casinos, saw a few shows, lounged by the pool. You would have loved it." Her answers were vague, but I didn't press. I didn't want to be the insecure husband questioning her every move. Still, something felt off. It wasn't until a few days later that the first crack in her story appeared. Laura had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, and as I walked by, I noticed an email notification pop up. It was from a hotel in Vegas, and the subject line read, "Thank you for your stay. Exclusive photos available." Curiosity got the better of me. I clicked the email and scrolled through the gallery, expecting generic promotional shots of the hotel. But then I froze. There she was, Laura, wrapped in the arms of another man. In the photo, she was laughing, her head tilted back toward him in a way that felt far too intimate. My stomach dropped. The timestamp on the photo confirmed it was taken the night she'd fallen asleep early. I couldn't breathe. My mind reeled as I stared at the image, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was nothing, just a friend? A stranger who got too close for the camera? I wanted so desperately to believe there was an innocent explanation, but deep down, I knew better. I didn't say anything right away. Instead, I waited, biding my time as I tried to piece together what had really happened in Vegas. That chance came sooner than I expected. Later that day, Laura left her phone on the nightstand while she was in the shower. My hands trembled as I picked it up, telling myself I just needed clarity. Within seconds, I found exactly what I feared, a string of messages with someone named Eric. The texts were flirty and familiar, filled with winking emojis and inside jokes that cut me to the bone. "That night with you was unforgettable. When can we make it happen again?" Eric wrote. "Let's not talk about this here. I'll call you later," Laura replied. My blood boiled as I scrolled further, finding photos and videos that shattered any illusion I'd held on to. Laura and Eric together, laughing, touching, kissing. And then, the images and videos took an even darker turn. Moments so intimate, so personal, that I felt like an intruder in my own wife's betrayal. I put the phone back on the nightstand and sat in silence, staring at the wall. I couldn't confront her. Not yet. This wasn't just a mistake or a lapse in judgment. This was something deeper, something calculated. I needed a plan. The days after Emma returned from Vegas were strange. On the surface, everything seemed fine. She was smiling more than usual, chatting about how great it was to catch up with her friends. She even brought me a cheesy souvenir, a welcome to fabulous Las Vegas magnet that I dutifully stuck to the fridge. But something felt off. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. I mean, how could anything be wrong? Emma was my wife, my best friend. If she was acting a little different, it was probably just post-vacation vibes or exhaustion from the trip. But the little things started piling up. For one, her phone habits changed. Emma was usually glued to her phone, scrolling through Instagram, texting our group chats, or showing me funny memes. But now, it was like her phone had become radioactive. She kept it on silent and face down whenever we were in the same room. If a notification came through, she'd glance at it and quickly dismiss it, like she didn't want me to see. Then there were the stories about the trip. Emma had always been a great storyteller. She could recount even the most boring office meeting and make it sound hilarious. But when I asked her about Vegas, she gave me nothing, just vague answers like, "Oh, we had so much fun," or "It was so nice to let loose with the girls." No anecdotes, no funny moments, no mention of anything specific. The more I thought about it, the more I realized something didn't add up. One day, while Emma was out running errands, I decided to tidy up the house. It was my way of distracting myself from the nagging feeling that something was wrong. I was wiping down the kitchen counters when her laptop chimed. A notification popped up in the corner of the screen. It was an email from the hotel she stayed at in Vegas. The subject line read, "Thank you for your stay. Exclusive photos available." I froze. My first thought was that it was harmless. Probably just promotional photos of the hotel's amenities, like the pool or the casino. But the unease in my chest wouldn't go away. Against my better judgment, I clicked on the email. It opened a gallery of images from the hotel, shots of the lobby, the rooftop bar, and the nightclub. I was about to close it when I saw her. Emma. She was in one of the photos, laughing, her arms draped around a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, dark-haired, and leaning in close to her like they were sharing an inside joke. She looked happy, carefree. The timestamp on the photo sent a chill through me. It was taken the night she'd told me she went to bed early because she was wiped out from all the walking. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. There was no denying it was her. When Emma came home that evening, I tried to act normal. But it was like a knot had formed in my stomach, tightening with every word she said. I couldn't bring myself to ask her about the photo. What if I was wrong? What if there was an innocent explanation? But the doubt wouldn't go away. The next morning, while Emma was in the shower, I saw her phone sitting on the nightstand. It was locked, of course, but I knew her passcode. It was our anniversary date. My hands were trembling as I picked it up and unlocked it. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was a violation of her privacy. But I couldn't stop myself. The first thing I checked was her text messages. Most of them were from friends or coworkers, normal stuff. But then I saw a thread from someone named Ryan. My heart sank. I didn't recognize the name, but the messages told me everything I needed to know. That night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. Me too, Ryan, but we shouldn't talk about this here. I'll call you later. The air seemed to leave the room as I read the messages over and over again, hoping I was misinterpreting them. But it only got worse. I opened her photo gallery, scrolling through recent pictures. At first, it was harmless stuff, group photos with her friends, selfies, shots of the hotel. But then I found a folder that had been tucked away, hidden from plain sight. Inside were photos of Emma I'd never seen before. She was wearing lingerie I didn't recognize, posing in what was clearly a hotel room. And then there were the videos. The first video seemed innocent enough. Emma filming a table covered in champagne glasses and rose petals, giggling as Ryan pulled her into view for a kiss. But the others, they were explicit. My entire body went cold as I watched the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, in situations I never imagined. With someone who wasn't me. I turned off the phone and set it back on the nightstand, my hands shaking. I felt like I was going to be sick. For the rest of the day, I couldn't look at her the same way. Every smile, every laugh, every casual touch felt like a lie. I wanted to confront her right then and there, to demand answers, but I couldn't. I needed to process what I'd just seen, to figure out how to approach this without losing my mind. I spent the night on the couch, claiming I had a headache. Emma didn't press me on it, which only made me feel worse. She didn't even seem to notice something was wrong. As I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, one thought kept running through my mind. Why? After discovering the messages and videos, my world felt like it was in free fall. Every moment I spent near Emma was torture. I couldn't shake the images from my mind. Her laughter in that photo with Ryan, the intimacy of their messages, and the videos that played on an endless loop in my head. But the worst part was pretending everything was normal. Emma didn't seem to notice anything was wrong. She carried on like everything was fine, cooking dinner, asking about my day, planning a weekend hike for us. It was like she was living in an entirely different reality, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. For days, I tried to act like nothing had changed. I told myself I needed time to figure out what to do, how to confront her without losing control. But as the days stretched into a week, I felt like I was slowly unraveling. The final straw came one Saturday afternoon. Emma had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was upstairs showering. A notification lit up the screen, and my heart stopped when I saw Ryan's name again. I stared at the message, my pulse pounding in my ears. Miss you already. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again. My hands clenched in a fist as I stared at the words, each one twisting the knife a little deeper. Last night, Emma had told me she was working late, that there was some big project she needed to wrap up at the office. I believed her. I couldn't do it anymore. When Emma came downstairs, still drying her hair with a towel, she stopped in her tracks when she saw me standing in the kitchen, her phone in my hand. Hey, she said, her smile faltering. What's up? I held up her phone, the screen still showing Ryan's message. Care to explain this? Her face went pale. For a moment, she just stared at me, like a deer caught in headlights. Then she tried to laugh it off. Oh, that's just, she started, but I cut her off. Don't lie to me, Emma. My voice was low, trembling with anger and hurt. I've seen everything. The messages, the photos, the videos. I know about Ryan. Her mouth opened, then closed, as if she was searching for something to say. Finally, she dropped the towel and sank into the nearest chair, burying her face in her hands. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. Her words hit me like a slap. Not an apology for what she'd done, just regret that I'd found out. How long has this been going on? I demanded. Emma looked up at me, her eyes red and filled with tears. It wasn't supposed to be serious, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It started in Vegas. It was just a fling. I didn't think it would. A fling? I interrupted, my voice rising. Emma, I watched the videos. I saw the messages. This wasn't some one-night mistake. You've been lying to me for weeks, maybe longer. How could you do this? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she just sat there, tears streaming down her face. Finally, she said, I don't know. I didn't mean to hurt you, but things haven't been the same between us for a while, you know? Her words hit me like a gut punch. Was she really trying to blame this on me? So this is my fault? I asked, my voice thick with disbelief. No, that's not what I'm saying, she said quickly. But we've been distant, haven't we? I felt like we were stuck in a rut, like we were just going through the motions. And then Ryan came along, and he made me feel. Don't, I snapped. Don't you dare tell me how he made you feel. I don't want to hear it. For a moment, there was silence between us. I could hear the sound of the clock ticking, the hum of the refrigerator. It was like the whole world had stopped, leaving just the two of us in this unbearable moment. What do you want me to say? Emma finally asked. That I'm a terrible person? That I made a mistake? Because I know I did. I know I screwed up, and I'm sorry. But I can't take it back. Her apology felt hollow, like it was more about easing her own guilt than making things right. I wanted to yell, to scream, to throw something. But instead, I just stood there, staring at her, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I need some air, I said finally, my voice shaking. Before she could say anything, I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind racing. Every memory of our life together felt tainted now, overshadowed by the betrayal. I thought about the nights we'd spent talking about our future, the promises we'd made to each other. All of it felt like a lie. By the time I pulled into a quiet park and sat on a bench, the anger had started to give way to something deeper, an overwhelming sadness. I loved Emma. Despite everything, I still loved her. But I didn't know if I could ever forgive her for what she'd done. As I sat there, staring at the empty playground in front of me, I realized I had a choice to make. I could confront her again, try to salvage what was left of our marriage. Or I could walk away, leave it all behind, and start over. But no matter what I decided, one thing was clear: things would never be the same. I spent the night driving around, my mind going in circles. Every time I thought I'd found some clarity, a new wave of anger or sadness would crash over me. When I finally pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. Emma hadn't left any lights on, which was strange for her. Stepping inside, the silence felt oppressive. I wasn't sure what I'd expected. Maybe Emma waiting up for me, ready to fight or explain. But the house was empty, or so it seemed. As I walked into the kitchen, I noticed a note on the counter. "I want to stay at a friend's for the night. We need to talk, but I think we both need some time to cool off first. I'm sorry." I crumpled the note in my hand and threw it in the trash. The apology felt like yet another slap in the face, hollow and meaningless. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, replaying every moment of our relationship in my head. I thought about the early days when we couldn't get enough of each other, the plans we'd made, the little moments that had made me believe we were solid. And now, it all felt like a distant memory, buried under lies and betrayal. By the time the sun came up, I knew I couldn't let things sit like this. I needed answers. When Emma came back later that morning, she looked exhausted. Her eyes were red, her hair was disheveled, and she carried the weight of guilt like a heavy cloak. She sat across from me at the dining table, her hands trembling as she wrapped them around her coffee mug. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. She nodded, not meeting my eyes. "I know." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The tension in the room was suffocating. Finally, I broke the silence. "How long?" I asked. Emma flinched, like she'd been expecting the question, but hoped it wouldn't come. "About 2 months," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. 2 months. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I'd spent those 2 months thinking everything was fine, while she'd been sneaking around with him. "And it started in Vegas?" I pressed. She nodded. "That weekend, it was a mistake. I was drunk, and I don't know. It just happened." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. It just happened, right? And the videos? The messages? The secret meetups? Were those just mistakes too? Emma's face crumpled, and she started to cry. "I know I've hurt you," she said through her tears. "I know I've ruined everything. I wish I could take it back, but I can't." I wanted to feel sympathy for her. I wanted to believe her tears were genuine. But all I felt was anger and betrayal. "Why?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why, why do this to us?" Emma wiped her eyes and took a shaky breath. "I don't know," she said. "Ryan, he made me feel alive again, like I was someone special. I know that sounds selfish, but I got caught up in it, and by the time I realized how wrong it was, I didn't know how to stop." Her words cut deep. Was I not enough? Had I failed to make her feel special? Or was this just who she was, a person who could betray someone who loved her? "Do you love him?" I asked, dreading the answer. Emma shook her head quickly. "No, it wasn't love. It was stupid, a distraction. I love you, and I want to fix this. I'll do whatever it takes, but please, don't give up on us." Her plea hung in the air, heavy and desperate. I stared at her, trying to make sense of the woman sitting across from me. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, was now a stranger. "I need time," I said finally. "I can't just forgive you, Emma. I don't even know if I can trust you again." She nodded, her tears flowing freely now. "I understand. I'll give you time, whatever you need." For the next few days, we lived in an unbearable limbo. Emma stayed in the guest room, and we barely spoke. Every interaction felt forced, like we were strangers awkwardly sharing a space. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the mess my life had become. But the distractions didn't last long. One evening, As I was scrolling through my phone, a notification popped up, a new email from an unfamiliar address. Curious, I opened it, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Attached were screenshots of Emma and Ryan's messages, photos, and even more videos, ones I hadn't seen before. The email simply read, "I thought you should know the truth. She's not who you think she is." I didn't recognize the sender, but it didn't matter. The content was all the confirmation I needed. I confronted Emma again that night, throwing the email in her face. She broke down, swearing she had no idea who would send something like that. But at that point, her words felt meaningless. The betrayal was deeper than I'd ever imagined, and I knew there was no coming back from it. The days following the second confrontation felt like a blur. Emma's apologies were endless, but they all felt the same: empty, desperate, and far too late. The more she begged for forgiveness, the more I felt myself pulling away. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she had made a terrible mistake and that we could somehow find a way to rebuild. But every time I looked at her, I saw nothing but the image of her in bed with him, the lies, the texts, the hidden world she had built behind my back. It was suffocating. I needed to leave, to escape from this mess and figure out who I was without her. I'd never been one to make snap decisions, but everything inside me screamed that I couldn't stay. One morning, I packed a bag and left. I didn't know where I was going, just that I couldn't be in that house anymore. I didn't tell Emma. There was nothing more to say. The sound of her crying as I walked out the door almost broke me, but I knew it was the right thing. I spent the next few days at a cheap motel. I didn't call anyone. I just needed space to think, to breathe, and to stop the constant noise in my head. It wasn't until the third day that I finally picked up my phone and called my brother. We hadn't spoken much recently, mostly because I'd been so wrapped up in my relationship. But now, with everything in chaos, I needed someone to talk to. "Hey man," he answered, his voice a little groggy. "What's up?" I don't know," I said, my voice cracking. "I messed up. I don't even know who I am anymore." He was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. "What happened?" I told him everything about Emma, about the affair, about the betrayal. I didn't leave out any details, even the ones that made me look like a fool. When I was done, my brother was silent again. I could hear him shifting on the other end of the line. "Are you going back?" he asked, his voice calm. I didn't know. "I don't think so," I said after a long pause. "I can't just forget what she did. And I can't keep pretending like everything's fine when it's not." My brother exhaled slowly. "Then you have to move on, man. It's going to be hard, but if you don't, you'll just keep getting stuck in that same cycle of pain." "I know," I muttered, "but it feels wrong, like I'm leaving something unfinished." "That's the thing," he said. "You can't fix everything. Sometimes you have to walk away and let it go. You got to put yourself first." It was the advice I didn't want to hear, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling, trying to find the strength to believe that walking away was the best thing for me. The hardest part wasn't that I was leaving Emma. It was the fear that I would never find love again, or that I'd be scarred by this for the rest of my life. But I knew, deep down, that I had to make this choice if I wanted to heal. When I returned to the house, it was almost surreal. Emma was there, sitting in the living room, her face a mask of exhaustion and guilt. She stood up when I walked in, her eyes wide. I didn't think you'd come back," she said, her voice breaking. "Please, I'm so sorry. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging you to give me another chance. I'll do anything." Her words hung in the air like a trap. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Emma, I can't keep living this lie. I'm not the same person I was when I walked into this house, and I don't think I ever will be again. You broke me, and I don't know how to fix that." Her face crumpled as the tears started again. "Please don't leave me. I love you. I made a mistake, but I can fix it. We can fix it." I shook my head. "It's too late for that. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." It was one of the hardest things I'd ever had to say. Walking away from the woman I thought I would spend my life with felt like a death, like I was losing a part of myself that I'd never get back. But I knew, deep down, that this was the end of the road for us. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Emma," I said quietly. "But I can't be the one to give it to you anymore." She didn't say anything else. She just stood there, staring at me, as I turned and walked out of the door for the last time. I didn't look back. I spent the next few months focusing on myself, finding new hobbies, reconnecting with friends, and letting myself grieve. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I missed her, when I questioned if I'd made the right choice. But with each passing day, I grew stronger. Eventually, I started dating again, but I never rushed into anything. I wasn't looking to replace Emma. I was just looking to heal. I still don't know if I'll ever trust someone the way I trusted her. But I do know that I'm finally learning to trust myself again. And for now, that's enough. As for Emma, I haven't spoken to her since, and I don't think I ever will. Some things are just too broken to fix.